Hello, my friend. You're listening to the Sort Yourself Out podcast. This week, we're discussing the biggest question since the awakening of mankind's intelligence. Yep, we're giving it large. We're asking, who are we and why are we here? I'm your host, Janine Hunt, natural health therapist for over 30 years, hypnotherapist, lifelong student, and spiritual seeker. I like to seek out the most effective practices and techniques that provide the greatest bang for my buck and the fastest route to freedom from whatever is holding us back. I can't wait to share with you these powerful techniques so that you too can sort yourself out, know deeper meaning in your life, and best of all, a sense of inner peace. So let's get started. Well, hello there, and thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're prepared for a whopper, as today I'm putting on my pointy philosopher's hat and examining that question that most of us have asked ourselves at some point in our lives. Who am I and why am I here? Now, often the point at which we ask the question is when we are mired in difficult life circumstances, and we need to understand why we are going through all this crap. Why is life flinging all this nastiness at me? Why? Why me? What's going on? How can I make it stop? Those are some of the associated questions. Basically, we're searching for the meaning of life. I told you it was a biggie. Now, inherent in this suffering is the very solution that leads us to understand the significance of the situation and to free ourselves to a higher level of consciousness and well-being. Because for many of us, we're going to need a little nudge from the dark night of the soul on the really heavy total reorientation end of the spectrum to the less intense, more garden variety of, say, bad habits or ways of thinking that create problems in our lives on various levels. The trials and tribulations in our lives force us to get off our butts and to make some positive change. Otherwise, we'd never stop lying on the sofa eating cake. Right? I'm giving a bit away there, I guess, so you can see what my default is. So I love the idea in Douglas Adams's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they ask the computer deep thought, the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Deep thought says it will take 7.5 million years to calculate the answer. And after 7.5 million years, deep thought clears his throat and majestically answers 42. That kills me. So I'm hoping that today we're going to delve a little deeper than 42. And hopefully, as well, not take 7.5 million years. So let's see if we can do it in 20 minutes or so. I'm not sure how long this is going to take. It looks like it might be a little longer than many of my episodes. But, this is a big subject matter, and I'm trying to condense it down. So let's get going with the first question. Who are we? Well, here's the nutshell answer. We are spiritual entities, souls who have chosen to incarnate in physical bodies here on earth. And part 2 of the question, why are we here? The nutshell answer is to sort ourselves out. We are here to experience life in all its glory and sometimes gory or misery, and through these experiences to learn, grow, and evolve. Now, we're evolving individually. As members of the human family, we are also contributing to the evolution of humanity as a whole. And it goes even further than that. Now, I'm coming at this from the perspective of the Ageless Wisdom, which I've been studying for many years. Now, the Ageless Wisdom is not just a spiritual tradition, and it is most definitely not a religion. It is an entire cosmology that, if you care to look into it, it will give you all the answers to life, the universe, and everything, and not 42. However, I will say that the Ageless Wisdom is not for everybody. It's a very dense subject matter that is not at all easy to understand. Once you begin to be able to get into it, and it can require a lot of personal work to get to that point, it is, however, the most satisfying and profound work you are ever likely to contact if you're really looking for answers to big questions like, who am I and why am I here? When I first came across the Ageless Wisdom teachings in the books of Alice Bailey, I thought, hurrah, this stuff looks like it's going to give me some answers. 'Cause peeps, I was in need. I'd recently quit drinking and was really trying to sort myself out. And in dealing with the mess of my life and my mind, I was seeking answers to what life was all about. I was really looking for deeper meaning. I was reading voraciously, having gone from being an atheist to a reluctant spiritual seeker, but I was just not really finding any answers that I could have confidence in and that rang true for me. And then, whilst flicking through a book on art of all things at a friend's house, actually, I think it was a book on the art of Rudolf Steiner, so that makes a bit more sense. I came across a quotation that was to change my path forever and thankfully lead me to the answers I was seeking. The quote was by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, and even her name gave me shivers and felt like a sort of mysterious recognition for me. And the quote, which sparked off a new understanding within me and left me utterly fascinated and yearning to know more, was this: matter is spirit at its lowest point of manifestation, and spirit is matter at its highest. And that just blew me away. It was news to me, but it just made sense. And that quote led me to the Ageless Wisdom and the books of Alice Bailey, which I've been studying ever since. They answered my deep questions I could not find answers to anywhere else. I excitedly bought my first Alice Bailey book, only to discover that I couldn't understand it. I was so annoyed. I just could not wrap my head around it. It was like I was reading another language. So I put it in a cupboard and continued to meditate and read other books on spirituality until one day, a year or so later, I got an urge to get that book out. And this time I could understand it a little bit, like just. I'm telling you all this as I want you to understand that I am trying to digest here in this brief podcast episode a philosophy and history of human existence and a cosmology that tells the story of our solar system right down to subatomic particles. And not just our current solar system, which is the second one, by the way, but the first and the next one as well. So it's big stuff, it's vast, it's puzzling, it's amazing, and a lot of it's pretty damn incomprehensible. But I'm going to give it my best shot. But just remember, I'm just one humble little human still learning as I go, continually awed by the paradoxical complexity and yet simplicity of the Ageless Wisdom teachings. But they just make sense. So that said, here goes. Esoteric philosophy, psychology, and cosmology in a nutshell. Sounds absurd, but I'm going to try it. So, I want to go back to my favorite quotation because within it, we have a nutshell within a nutshell. Matter is spirit at its lowest point of manifestation, and spirit is matter at its highest. So this speaks of a continuum, with spirit as one pole and matter as the other. Throughout the history of our world, spirit has been descending into matter. Life has been descending into form. This is a process known as involution, in which spirit is becoming more involved in matter. You may have heard of the earlier races of humanity, such as the Lemurian race or the Atlantean race, or the Aryan race, which is our present race of humanity. And a little digression here for those out there who are thinking, Aryan, oh my God, that's what Hitler was on about. Well, let me address that by saying that Hitler came across the word Aryan somewhere and polluted it as he used it for his deranged and evil purposes. And that, incidentally, is why the Ageless Wisdom is known as esoteric or occult, because it describes laws and principles that are dangerous in the hands of the wrong people. Traditionally, these teachings were handed down verbally and only to trusted aspirants who had reached a certain level of consciousness where they could be trusted with the information and not to take what they had learned and use it for evil purposes. And this is also why service is a necessary requirement on the spiritual path. These laws, principles, and practices that the Ageless Wisdom teaches are themselves neutral, but they can be used for good or for evil. So having an approach of service to humanity or service for the good of the whole is a necessary aspect. So in the late 1800s and the first half of the 1900s, this material appeared in books for the first time and was publicly available to the masses. Normally, you would not even be drawn to it unless you are ready. You know that saying that when the student is ready, the master appears? Well, that would generally be the case. And as in my experience, you wouldn't even understand it if you stumbled across it before you were ready. So I don't know where Hitler happened across the term Aryan, but he took something that was essentially sacred and made it profane. This is where the biblical phrase comes in to not cast pearls before swine, because unready people who do not understand it are still capable of contacting and running with information, bastardizing it, and dumbing it down to their own level in the process. Okay, back to our continuum with its poles of spirit and matter. Across the millennia, spirit has been descending into matter, and as it does so, developing different qualities and characteristics. The human kingdom is currently at its deepest point of involution into matter, our deepest point of materialization. And we can see this through the rampant materialistic nature of humanity at present, so focused on having material stuff, way more than we need, so focused on external physical appearances, obsessed with sex and youth, and pumping ourselves full of Botox, and having the perfect physical body, and then perhaps showing it to everyone online. So this is such a minefield for humanity, and I can only be grateful that that opportunity did not exist when I was young and fit and vain and extremely likely to get up to some very stupid shit. So thank God the internet did not exist then, because I would probably have been like, my life would have been ruined by the stupid shit I would have got up to. So in this sense about humanity being at its deepest sense of materialization, there's some good news, because the only way is up. And because humanity has reached this deepest stage of involution, we are now ready for the evolutionary arc, where we get on what is known as the path of return, and the consciousness begins moving back up the continuum, spiritualizing matter. As we experience life on Earth, we are learning and growing from our experiences. We're raising our awareness and expanding our consciousness. We're doing this individually through our incarnations, but also collectively across millions of years as parts of a greater life, as parts of the entity that is ensouling the planet Earth. So we are literally imbuing the matter of the planet, which not coincidentally forms our physical bodies, with ever higher frequencies of light or spirit or energy. And this is why spiritual growth is called enlightenment. Now, most of us tend to think that we are our bodies, but they are the vehicles through which the soul experiences and expresses itself in the world. In fact, we really have three bodies. We have the dense physical body, the arms, legs, head, etc. Plus, there is the etheric body, which is the subtle energy body that lies behind the physical body and provides the blueprint for the physical body. We also have an emotional body and a mental body, and these are energetic in nature, and they condition and flow through the etheric body to have an effect on our physical body. So these three bodies are known as the personality in the Ageless Wisdom. And this is not the personality as in, oh, she's so witty and funny, or he's the quiet and introverted type. But the three bodies that make up our vehicles of expression for the indwelling spirit, the soul, so it can experience and express itself in the world. As we evolve, we begin to identify less and less with the body and its five senses. We move away from being emotionally polarized, which is pretty much the standard state of much of humanity until higher work begins. And then we start to become mentally polarized. And usually there will be a lot of personal growth involved as this shift proceeds. It can be a really intense period of sorting yourself out and getting rid of your hang-ups and learning to master your emotions, your mind, and your thoughts. Now, we learn via crises, and then we move on to face the next lesson with the higher state of consciousness that has got us through the crisis alive and integrated the lessons within it. Fun, fun, fun. This is how we adapt in ever greater measure to living as a soul in form in a body. It's how we become better adapted lifetime by lifetime to dealing with life on Earth. This progress always involves an opening of the mind and the heart, as a major part of sorting yourself out means facing the glamours and illusions that are operating within you and mindfully peeling them away. What are glamours, you ask? Well, glamours are distorted ideas we hold on an emotional level, just as illusions are distorted ideas and perceptions on a mental level, and Maya is distortion on the physical level. So we have to be open to the self-inquiry and the work involved to purify our bodies of these distortions. And if you're on the path of doing this, you know it is continuous, non-stop effort, because old, fixed, conditioned habits, physical emotional, and mental, die hard. Thanks, God. You may have heard me speak about the top-down approach to improving your well-being in other episodes. Well, I'd like to be able to claim that idea, the top-down idea, but I didn't make that up myself. It happens to be the way that we evolve as individuals. So on an individual level, we need to stop identifying so much with our emotional nature and feeding our desires. You may have noticed that those kinds of things we do to make ourselves feel better either backfire, as for example, we dig ourselves into a financial hole by purchasing just one more pair of shoes, and also the fleeting nature of the high you get from such pursuits. That's just one example, but it applies in so many ways. So what we need to do is to become aware when our emotional nature is running the show and actually choose to transcend it by bringing it under the dominion of our mental nature. We can then become the detached observer of our emotions and desires, and then no longer be ruled by them. So this is the top-down approach. And as we get better and more proficient at this, we gradually and steadily clear away the fog and miasma of misguided ideas and opinions and conflicts that form our emotional makeup. And this cleansing and restoring of right thinking to our personality leads to the integration of the personality vehicles, so they are working together as one unit. And when this happens, we are in a position to make greater contact with the soul. We have a clearer channel to receive the impulses from the soul. Now, it's not all as cut and dried as I'm probably making it sound. There's a lot of overlap in the stages in the process of integration. But the upshot is ever clear away the crap, and you make the space for higher energies to come through. Your threefold personality, physical, emotional, mental, becomes an instrument for the soul to use. And this is when we get into the really good stuff, because with your emotional stability, mental polarization, and alignment with the soul, you begin to understand and manifest your soul's purpose for this incarnation. Because before you were born, your soul had an agenda of what it wanted to cultivate, develop, and continue to learn. And this is always in agreement with other souls, usually important family members and friends with whom you are incarnating, so that you can work out your individual and your group karma together. Whew, my brain hurts. Okay, so here's a really interesting thing. As we step on to this path of spiritual aspiration, we are literally building into our bodies atoms that operate at a higher order of existence. Here's a quotation from Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1 by Alice Bailey that explains this phenomenon. Quote, "The effect of continued aspiration, when followed by right action, is to bring about three things. 1, a stimulation of the higher atoms of the three bodies. 2, the discarding, as a result of this stimulation, of those atomic substances which, when present, occultly hold the aspirant down to earth. 3, the increasing of the magnetic, attractive power of the higher atoms, which draw to themselves atoms of high vibration to take the place of those of low vibration. One point I should like to make here in order to correct an almost universal wrong mental attitude. Right atoms of high vibration are attracted into a man's body or bodies by the power of the united attraction of the atoms already present, and not primarily by the will of the soul, except insofar as that will acts upon the high-grade atoms already present and responsive. Aspiration is an activity of an occult and scientific nature, and is instinctual in substance itself." Unquote. Wow. Now, this is something we see a lot of in the Ageless Wisdom teachings, that the methods and practices are considered to be scientific. And this is different from the current, or should we say old, ways of religion, in which we meekly and blindly obey the word of some preacher or priest who has been placed in authority over us. In esoteric philosophy, we take responsibility for our own evolution. You're in the driver's seat. And it's called scientific, as via the esoteric teachings, you are asked to keep an open mind and to hold the idea that what is being taught might be good and valuable and true, and then to put it to the test in your life. And this takes dedication and discipline, but certainly not blind faith. And I love that. This aspect really spoke to me when I first discovered the Ageless Wisdom, as the blind faith aspect of organized religion was something I just could not stomach. And honestly, it would have prohibited me from getting onto the spiritual path if there were no other alternatives. So we put the practices and principles to the test in our own lives and learn for ourselves the verity and usefulness and value of what is being taught. This is wisdom gained through practical study and application, not knowledge accepted in blind faith. In the mature spirituality, you're wearing the trousers. Yay! It's all in your hands. So that is a nice place to wrap it up for today. Gonna go give my brain a rest. So I'm going to leave you with a nice quotation from Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2 by Alice Bailey and the Tibetan Master, which sums up our topic, who are we and why are we here, rather nicely. Here goes. Spiritual aspirants are those who are awakened to the purpose of experience and who are consequently bringing to every event an intelligent power to extract from the happenings to which they are subjected some gain to the life of the soul. They have learnt to regard the environment in which they find themselves as the place of purification and the field of their planned service. Nice. Okay, so if you'd like to get started today on moving forward your own integration and alignment with your soul, I suggest you download my quick start guide to doable meditation, as meditation is the main way you can make that happen. You can get my guide at theinspirationcloud.com/SYO23, and those are the digits 23, not the word 23. So that's theinspirationcloud.com/SYO23, and I'll also put a link in the show notes. Seriously, meditation is the way. Okay, my friend, that is all for today. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Today we were mainly looking at the individual or microcosmic nature of who we are and why we're here. But next week I'm carrying on this discussion in part 2, when we'll be looking at the bigger macrocosmic picture of life, the universe, and everything. Now, if you're interested in learning more deeply about all of these fascinating topics and practices to take you further on your spiritual path, to amplify your well-being and your positive impact in the world, why don't you sign up to the waitlist for my upcoming Inner Circle membership? Go on over to theinspirationcloud.com/membership to get on the waitlist, and I will keep you in the loop. Take care, my friend. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I really hope you found it helpful and full of uplifting ideas that you can put into practice in your life. And if you have, chances are your friends and family will too. So please share it with them on social media. You'll be helping them to sort themselves out, because I bet you think they need it, right? But seriously, you'll also be doing me a huge favor, and I will be eternally grateful for your generosity. It would also be lovely if you would leave me a review on iTunes, preferably a nice one, please. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast while you're there. If you have any questions or would like me to address a certain topic, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at info@theinspirationcloud.com. Have a good one, folks. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.